Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another online Chinese history class with me, Tony. In the last class, we talked about how the spring and autumn period was named. It was after a book written by Confucius, one of the most famous philosophers of all time. We also talked about the spring and autumn period transitioning into the Warring States period because of the smaller kingdoms getting conquered and eaten up by the bigger fishes, the bigger kingdoms. The kingdom of Jin splitting into three. So there were only 7 kingdoms left now. So there are Han, Zhao, Wei, Qi, Chu, Yan, and Qin. Han, Zhao, and Wei were the kingdoms that resulted from Jin splitting up. These 7 kingdoms were the Warring States of the Warring States period, and then we also talked about how the new ranking system for the battles, which included awarding soldiers for their kills. That was basically the entire basis of it, giving them power. That just made the wars in that period terrifying because the soldiers were just out for blood. They just wanted those kills. They just wanted. They couldn't run away anymore. They could, but that wouldn't benefit them. So there's 7 kingdoms now, and they're fighting. We know how this will end because this period has to end since China right now is in 7 kingdoms, so it had to end anyway. And so one kingdom ultimately had to prevail out of all 7, and the other 6 kingdoms will be obliterated, erased, completely gone, wiped just out of Earth. It could also be combined, but the question is which one of those, how will it end up with one kingdom, and that's what I'm here to tell you. In the next couple of classes, maybe I'll talk about that. So, a very important evolution of technology that they started utilizing in the Warring States period, this is important because this made the wars even more terrifying. The technology that they made, it was not cool, but it killed more people. it ended kingdoms faster. And without those technology, most likely the Warring States period would have dragged on more. And first of all, they used iron and steel in tools, weapons, and armor. Yep. It's actually surprising how they haven't used iron weapons and armor before this period. Back in the spring and autumn period, people were just using copper tools and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty cool that they just got iron armor. That is pretty surprising. However, in order to create the armor that they needed, or smelt the veins of iron ore into iron and actually use them to construct the armor and weapons and tools, they had to create machines to do that. And in this case, they made giant banks of hot air that absorbed and stored the heated air and transferred it into furnaces, which then, from the air, made an environment of extremely hot temperature and smelted the iron needed. Now, these giant, ginormous, enormous, supremely large banks of steaming and hot air also caused some lethal damage. They were made to cause some lethal damage. At the time, there was a strategy which involved using the banks of extremely hot air, right? And it was a defensive strategy. And basically, as you can see here on this slide, on the left side, that is an example of a bank of that absorbed and contained the steaming hot air. However, that is a smaller version that was used later. Before, in the Warring States, they had much bigger ones, and they looked a bit different, but in general design is the same. So anyways, this defensive strategy that included that, it was used if the attacking side decided that sieging a castle's walls proved ineffective and the soldiers couldn't get past it without dying and getting killed, even with the determination of getting like 8 or more, like 13 acres of land, like a lot of land and a lot of property and a lot of power. So they will use a certain attacking strategy, and the defensive side used a strategy to counter it that used the banks of steam and hot air. So this is basically a puzzle for you. So what strategy and counter strategy do you think that they were, that I'm talking about here? I'll give you 3 choices here. A, the strategy on the attacking side was digging a tunnel from their base war camps to under parts of the city that they were besieging that contained soldiers. However, the defensive side, in defense, would release the hot air into the tunnels so that the attacking side couldn't go into the tunnels without suffocating from all the hot air, and they couldn't breathe. It was too hot there. They also could faint. It's also a possibility. Or B, the attacking strategy was using catapults that launched giant boulders to break the walls. However, that would be too loud, so they would normally do it at night, and then they would rush in quickly during night when the soldiers were just waking up and just getting ready and just wearing their armor. So then, however, the defending strategy, after a lot of kingdoms failed to do this, they decided to use the hot air banks to make the catapults malfunction before the attacking side gets to it. So they placed hot air banks, extended the range a bit, they modified it a bit, and they released the hot air into the catapults so they would malfunction. Or C, the attacking strategy consists of using bows and arrows instead of straight up just charging. The defending strategy tactically placed the hot air banks near where the arrows would approximately land, so when the arrows were close, the heat would affect the arrow so that it would fall to the ground without any momentum and just not hit anyone. I'll give you some time to think and answer. Alright, the correct answer was A. That's right. The attacking side began digging tunnels, and the defensive side began putting the hot air into the tunnels to suffocate them from all the hot air and make them faint. And some kingdoms also decided, for the convenience of continuously just sending out armies and attacking the other 6 warring states, that it was a good idea to mine out entire chunks of mountains so that their armies could just get through the mountains and traverse easier instead of just having to climb the mountains and getting tired. Now this took a long time. This is in Minecraft. You can't just mine a couple of blocks. It took such a long time. They had a lot of workers in this, but in the end, it was efficient after a couple of years of just plain hard work and workers dying from just occasionally boulders falling, avalanches, or just dying out of tiredness. It worked. It was very efficient. The roads also opened up a lot of opportunity for trading. The merchants prospered using this. However, a bunch of them were unlucky, and they met with enemy armies just on the way to raid their kingdom on the road. So then they had, let's just say, a lot of trouble happened. That's understandable, but yeah, let's just say that. However, the successful ones grew extremely rich. There were even some generals who were also successful businessmen. They traded, they utilized this route, both for war and for their own benefit, their business. So then, because of how the amount of kills of a soldier had gave him wealth, how that related, combined with the tradability of the roads, these types of generals and businessmen became extremely rich and powerful on both sides of the war and the trade. And that's going to be it for today's class. See you next time.